Hey guys, Siafa Lewis, NBC Sports, and James Neveau, the man, the myth, the legend. He's Mr. Everything on NBCChicago.com and, of course, the NBC5 app. We are here today to talk about the reports that the Cubs will hire David Ross, Grandpa Rossi, as their next manager. What are your first thoughts, James?
First thoughts is this seems like it's been a foregone conclusion since they started talking about this. As soon as Joe Maddon basically left the microphone the day they announced he wasn't coming back, the speculation was that David Ross was going to be the manager of this team. So we've had like a month to kind of get used to this idea. I don't think there was a home run hire here to be made. This wasn't like a situation where they...
right?
I like it.
Right.
It's not like when they let go of Rick Renteria specifically to hire Joe Maddon. There wasn't a candidate out there I thought that was going to have that same impact, that same panache, so to speak.
That punch.
Exactly. There wasn't going to be that guy. So I think that ultimately it's something we're going to have to wait to see play out. Obviously, there's a lot of people who have opinions about how it could play out. We're going to talk about that, obviously.
I actually disagree with you a little bit. I think there was one guy out there who could have delivered that punch. And that, of course, is Joe Girardi, who won a World Series with the Yankees in 2009. I think he ended a 9-year drought for the Yankees. Which
Such a long
to
drought.
them is the equivalent of a 108-year drought in New York. There's a guy who's done it in a small market with the Marlins when he was manager of the year in 2006.
Yep.
He was manager of the year with the Yankees, I believe. He won a World Series with the Yankees. He's managed in a big town. He understands what the pressure is like in a big market. And he's a guy he would demand a ton of respect. He's a little younger than Joe, so he's kind of in between Joe and David Ross. I think that's the guy that a lot of teams who want to take that next step are going to be looking to hire. The Phillies are interested in him. The Mets are interested in him. I think it would have been perfect here. He also played here, of course, and he's also a catcher. Catcher.
And he's a local kid, too, which is kind of the full circle thing.
Right.
I think the big question a lot of people had about Joe Girardi was the circumstances under which he was let go by the Marlins and then ultimately let go by the Yankees. Did that concern you at all? That he kind of had that reputation as being a little bit too hard on the younger players and not developing a good rapport with them?
Did not, and it does not bother me because I feel as though not being hard enough on guys and the big A word, the accountability or the lack thereof with the Cubs under Joe Maddon, that was the biggest issue, right?
Right.
So you want a guy who's going to bring a different voice, a different vision, different set of experiences to this dugout, this locker room, and I think that he would have been a perfect guy.
And it was something that Theo Epstein brought up specifically when they were asking him, why did you let Joe Maddon go? They specifically brought up that accountability, that willingness to make those hard decisions and to kind of be, just harder with these guys. And I think a lot of people, as David Ross has kind of emerged as the favorite candidate, have questioned that because of his public persona, the Grandpa Rossi thing, all of that. And then we've kind of seen like a little bit of a pushback, I think, especially from those who kind of cover the team on a regular basis, saying that he does have that bit of hard edge to him, that he is going to hold the guys accountable. Yeah. The thing that we have to bring up, though, is how recently he played for the Cubs, because unlike some of these guys like Aaron Boone and Alex Cora and Brad Ausmus, Dave Roberts, those guys, yes, they played for those organizations, but that was like a decade before they became managers. David Ross, it's only been 3 years since he's gone, so that's a question that he has to answer specifically.
You and I had this conversation last night, so we started looking up younger managers, their first managerial experience, and how recent it was in relation to the last time they played. I found one guy who's a comp.
Who is it?
He's in the Cubs division. Craig Counsell.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Played for the Brewers in 2011.
Yep.
And then in 2015, he became their manager. So he is the one comp I can think of.
That is an interesting one. I think the thing maybe with Craig Counsell is he wasn't as high of a profile guy as David Ross. Wasn't kind of like the universally beloved spiritual leader of the bunch.
He is an NLCS MVP, however.
He
and
absolutely
a two-time World Series winner as well.
And he's gotten the Brewers to the playoffs in 2 consecutive seasons,
yes, he has.
too.
So if you're looking for something, there's a positive.
That's about the closest comp that we have. So I'm going to ask you the question directly then. Does it concern you that he has been such a close fixture with this team over the last several years, only 3 years removed from playing with these guys? Does that concern you that he will not hold these guys to account if they're messing around in a way that maybe Theo Epstein kind of sort of accused Joe Maddon of doing?
My issue is not whether or not David Ross would hold the players to account. My issue or concern is how will the players react to David Ross holding them to account? Because James and I are buddies, okay? If I became his boss tomorrow or he became my boss tomorrow, our relationship would inevitably change. It just has to. It's not the same because one person now answers to the other in some way, shape, or form. And it's even more different in this instance because a lot of the guys I don't want to say he's their boss because Theo is their boss, Jed is their boss, but they still answer to David Ross, and a lot of them make more money than he does.
Right.
That's number one.
Yep.
Number two, he's a guy who was their buddy and their teammate, so they know him at a different level. He's a colleague. So even if he is telling you what you need to hear as a teammate, it's still received differently than when it's Joe Madden.
Right.
So now, David Ross, who was your buddy, is now the guy that you answer to. How will they receive that criticism when it's not advice any longer?
Right.
When it's a directive.
And they did mention, several players did mention that on the day that Joe Madden was announced that he wasn't coming back, they were asked specifically about David Ross. And like guys like Anthony Rizzo and John Lester, I think specifically, are guys that you have to look to because Anthony Rizzo obviously bought David Ross the scooter. He did all that stuff and keeps calling him dad and whatnot.
But how about Jason Hayward paid for a suite for Ross's family at every road trip in the 2016 season?
Right.
Because they played together in Atlanta before he came here.
I think guys like Rizzo and Lester did bring up that element of how are you going to take orders basically from David Ross. They said the right things. Like they said, look,
it's totally different as a hypothetical.
You can exactly. I was gonna. You stole the point right from me. And yeah, like
I just trampled all over it.
They did say that is going to be different, but they're going to have to ultimately, at the end of the day, realize that if David Ross tells you to do something, whether it's you're coming out after 6 innings, or we're double switching you, or whatever,
you're not starting today.
They have to take that because he is their manager, and like you said, that could fundamentally alter the relationship that those guys have with him. Do you think it's an advantage that David Ross does have at least a little bit of a pre-existing relationship with the players, just because then he's already earned their trust and that's not a process that he would have to go through like, say, a Joe Espada would have?
Yeah, I think the trust is there, the respect is there, the admiration is there, and I think there's certain things that Ross knows about a lot of these guys as a former teammate and friend that a new manager coming in would have to learn. So
correct.
That is an advantage in my opinion.
I definitely would agree with that.
I'm glad you agree, man.
Is there anything else that if you're in the room, say, tomorrow when Theo Epstein announces this officially, which it's going to happen eventually, what questions specifically would you ask Theo Epstein about this hire?
I think the first question that needs to be asked is, Theo, you addressed the fact that you want to move on from 2016 and everything that happened then, and I think you talked about the accountability and I think a new message. How is going back to a guy who was part of the 2016 team, who was a special assistant to baseball ops in 2017, 2018, and 2019, how is that moving on from the past?
See, this in the business, you sometimes ask a question, you want to already know what the answer is probably going to be. I kind of knew that's where Siafa was going to go with that. Sorry, man. I knew. I just wanted them to know.
How would you answer that if you're Theo?
If I were Theo, I would say that David Ross does have a very close relationship, not only with those players, but with that team specifically. But he also carries with him all of the years of prior experience that he had in the big leagues. And it was always kind of assumed, that he was eventually going to find his way to a major league bench. And I think that at least in some part, he probably is really prepared for that role. And I think that it puts him in a unique position to be able to kind of set aside those personal, cuddly feelings and to instill that kind of accountability that Theo wants, because he did that while he was a player. And multiple players have said that Ross was a guy that would keep especially the young guys accountable, and that was really important to the success of the 2015 and the 2016 Cubs.
See, good answer, but if I'm Theo, if I'm in that,
neither of us went to Yale, so we're not going to be as articulate as Theo.
I want to hear that David Ross is his own man. David Ross is not Joe Madden. This is not a slight on Joe Madden in any way, shape, or form, but David Ross is his own man. He has his own vision. He has his own voice, and that's what he's going to present to our team to help us move forward. I don't want to hear about the past.
Right.
And his experiences help him get the job and everything else, but I want to hear about how he can help this team and this franchise move forward.
Look out, Theo Epstein. If this guy's in that press conference, you're getting some really hard questions. Well, Siafa, we're going to wrap this up.
Do we have to?
Well, you do have a 5 o'clock show that you have to go prepare for.
I guess that's true.
So is there anything else that you want to let the folks know about the coverage that we're going to have coming up here on the TV side of things?
Regarding
David Ross.
Anything at all?
What are you going to say give them a tease of what you're going to say at 5, 6, and 10 tonight.
Stay tuned.
Oh, I will give you a little bit more than that. I will say on our website, we are going to have a timeline of David Ross's time here in Chicago. We're, of course, going to have this video breaking it down, and we're going to have much more analysis in the days to come as they make this hire official.
I'm jealous. That's totally unfair because we have to talk about Mitch Trubisky talking today up at House Hall. The Bulls open their season tonight in Charlotte. The World Series continues Game 2. So I have more things to fit into my sportscast than you do on the web, where you can go all Cubs and all David Ross.
You know what? Sometimes it pays to be in a little bit more casual environment, Siafa.
Yes, it does.
All right, for Siafa Lewis, I'm James Neveau from NBCChicago.com. Thank you guys for watching this, and there will be plenty more to come, I assure you, from both of us on this hire.
See you guys.